Mechs are from Cybertron, Femmes are from Venus, a discussion of gendering and robotic and AI characters. Let's go right to left and each take a minute to introduce ourselves, where people can find our work, and a robot that has changed your life.
Oh boy. My name is Blue Delaquani. I am the creator of the online comic Oh Human Star. I don't remember my table number. I think it's like, what's 306? Yeah, okay, I'm at 306, I'm 80% sure, and,
What is this, 406?
okay.
A robot that has changed your life.
A robot that has changed my life. This is probably an easy answer, but the Iron Giant. I just saw the signature edition in theaters like last week, and that movie made me cry again.
We have all been touched by the
Yes!
memories. Hi, I'm Grace Moore, and if you recognize the sound of my voice, you are probably a giant nerd and have listened to me on Trek FM's Women at Warp, ladies discussing Star Trek. You can find me on Twitter, here, and read my writing on the Mythcreants blog. And a robot that has probably touched my life the most was Rosie the robot. Because when you're a little kid and you don't want to do your chores and your parents just say, just be a good girl, you can put on a box and stick your arms through it and go, I'm going to do it, but only if I can be a robot.
Only if I can wisecrack the whole time.
Exactly. They never ask you to clean the floors a second time after that. Life hack.
Hi, I'm Kiku Hughes. I've made a short comic about robots and gender called Twins recently, but other than that, I'm not really...
You're super good.
Oh gosh.
I don't have a table here, but you can find my work at geniusv.tumblr.com.
Hell yeah, you can.
And a robot that has touched my life. Oh, Iron Giant was a good one, I gotta say.
You can't use it.
I know that's a good one.
He's been dibsed.
I guess I would have to say C-3PO was probably the first robot that I really got into as a child.
Hello, I'm Margaret Trout, and I do a comic called Decrypting Rita about a robot lady dragged out of reality by her ex-boyfriend. And you can find it online at egypt.ernash.com, or you can find my table like right through that wall. I think it's 402. I want to say it's 420, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Anyway, and a robot that changed my life. I too would probably want to say the Iron Giant, except Blue already claimed him as her waifu. So I think I'm going to just be horribly egotistical and say the robot star of my own comic, because spending 4 years telling her story has gotten me some interesting new places and lots of life lessons about publishing.
That's a legit answer. Like, I could probably say something similar about the stars of my own work.
I feel like it's a little egotistical, but...
You guys get the deeply personal answers, and I'm just like, who's the robot?
You do, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like pretending to be a robot? That's important robosexual conversation.
First becomes the experimental stage, and then, later when you grow up.
I mean, who has not pretended to be a robot here?
No one's raising their hands.
Yeah.
Case in point. Now, just to establish, we are talking about robots. So sadly, for those of you who wanted to hear about automatons, people with cybernetic enhancements, or mecha, we're kind of going to be glossing over that to stick strictly to the robotic and AI stuff, just to keep a more narrow field. Now, for those of you who are not aware, the original word robot comes from the Czechoslovakian Czech word for slave. It was come up with by Karel Čapek, who was a writer who wrote the play R.U.R. and was pretty much the originator of the word robot. So we got to admire that for one thing, just so you have that background. So those are specifically the type of robot or AI or artificial intelligence we are going to be discussing today.
That means it was like a WPA play, wasn't it? Like
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so we're actually coming up on the 100th anniversary of the development of the word robot. Pretty soon, if not already.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Topical.
It's weird to think that the word itself is not that old. Like
it's less than 100 years old, but the concept is pretty old.
I read that play again recently, and it's interesting what he considered robots, because the closest thing that we would probably have to what they were is the Cylons from the Battlestar Galactica remake, like kind of organic, they're organic, like they're organically put together and manufactured and stuff. They're not the clunky, wearing metal tubes kind of robot that they were often interpreted as. Yeah, so it was super interesting, like kind of seeing what he thought of as robots back in the day.
Definitely. Before that, generally the only real concepts of robotics we had were pre-industrial ones, and the sort of Galatea and the Golem, and just the idea of you could theoretically make an artificial life, but we don't know what that would look like, and we kind of got a better idea of what we would imagine that as societally now. So, to continue, we're talking about robotics and gender. How do we define gender? We have trouble with that. It is a very broad spectrum of what you can identify, going beyond a binary notion, and which genuinely you'd think would be something that robots would be more into, or portrayed as being more into, don't you?
Fuzzy logic, man. It's the future.
It really is.
Yeah.
Sorry, looking at my notes.
Yeah, no, I think that's super interesting in that, depending on what medium that you are partaking your robots in, whether it's books, various Star Treks, films, that sort of thing, how far they approach gender is really interesting. Like, Kiku, you and I were actually talking about Mass Effect, was it the other day?
Yeah.
Like, would you care to talk about what you were saying about that one robot character? I had not played, she had, she was kind of...
Yeah, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't played Mass Effect 3. But there's actually one AI in Mass Effect 2 who is just a bodiless AI, but given a female voice, which is a very typical sort of gendering of AI, bodiless AI, in a lot of media. She gets a body in Mass Effect 3, which is your stereotypical, very like femme body.
It's very 60s neo-futurism.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of
Very
like...
bestie.
Yeah, sort of
kind
soaring
of
on
in a
that.
type.
Yeah. What was there was another one too where it was like they were referred to as it the whole time.
Right. There's actually a collective of AI that all communicate in one vessel, Legion. And throughout the entire series, they refer to Legion as it, and Legion at the end refers to himself as I. But then everyone starts calling he, so it becomes like a very strange gendering that is this automatic assignment of male gender to.
It was like, oh, so close.
It's very robotic, I would
Okay.
say it's sort of synthesized.
Okay, just really ambiguous in gender.
Yeah.
We tend to think of as male as default.
Yeah, we have this very male until proven otherwise default, which is very upsetting. And I actually really liked the second Mass Effect that we've had Edie, who's the ship's AI, without a body and just a voice. And the female part actually, having a female voice really interested me because, for one thing, we had someone yell out Siri in there. And it reminded me of this study that I read at one point about how a lot of the artificial intelligence programs they have for computers, cell phones, GPS, they try to have a female voice because people more commonly associate that with an assistant or someone who is there to help them. Except in some countries where they had to insist on changing the voice of Siri to a male one because, get this, drivers did not feel comfortable taking instructions from a woman.
Oh, that's interesting. So these are like, these are Western countries or
Actually, it was Germany. One of them was Germany, apparently. Yeah.
Oh, weird. I thought like for purely political reasons it would be like Saudi Arabia,
right?
where you can't drive,
Yeah.
literally.
No, they
but
just,
like,
I don't trust these women, not even these robot women.
that's super interesting.
Right? So that was one thing that I thought was interesting because not only do we have female identifying artificial intelligence in the future, they're driving the friggin' spaceship.
And they know everything about the spaceship.
And I really like the concept of Edie being an intelligence without a body and kind of self-identifying that, and then suddenly just being, busty lady. I was a little disappointed in that.
No, she had a body before. She had a body when it was a spaceship.
Yeah.
She was a girl spaceship.
Yeah, I know. If you identify as a spaceship, you should feel okay with identifying as a spaceship.
Oh my god. Oh, okay. This just made me think of Who here has read Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie? Okay, you might know where I'm going. For anyone who isn't familiar, I literally finished this really great hard sci-fi novel by Anne Leckie called Ancillary Justice, and the deal with this universe is that there are artificial intelligences who are primarily housed in troop carrier spaceships, but they also have like a bunch of other bodies, like basically groups of 20 human bodies where they've just been sort of implanted, you know, not necessarily consensually, but whatever, there you go, that's the universe. But the idea is that when they're deployed to planets for various reasons, like each military human officer's company, but like 20 of these different people, and they're basically just kind of your wingmen throughout your troop deployment. And the other cool thing about this universe is the culture takes place in does not distinguish between various genders. So the author illustrates this by using she pronouns for everybody when referring to people within this culture, this language. It's so interesting. I could seriously talk for an hour about this.
We are going to be saving questions for the end if you have anything to add. So
Yeah.
just hold on tight.
Yeah, hold on tight. Yeah.
Thinking about that made me suddenly flash on Ian M. Banks' culture. And I just realized, I don't think a single ship mind or any of the minds that run spaceships or orbitals or whatever are ever gendered. I think they're all just, they have a name, and Banks reuses the name and just refrains from ever giving them a pronoun.
Do you happen to remember how they dealt with the robots? Like, because other than the ship AIs, there were also, were they called droids? I don't think they were.
Drones.
Drones, thank you.
Yeah, I think some of the drones did maybe have males. I want to say that the one in why can I not remember his name? It's the one in use of weapons. I think that one got a he.
Yeah.
I would not blame money on that though.
That was interesting because the culture is another one of those sci-fi cultures that is very, very wibbly-wobbly when it comes to gender. And it's not necessarily that they don't recognize it, but when you're like, you can live to be centuries old, you can flip back and forth, you know, dozens of times if you want to have kids, sire kids. It's super
Generally
interesting.
speaking, if you were going to have a humanoid robotic body and you can have all kinds of upgrades and enhancements, why would you just stick with the one gender? Why wouldn't you mess around with that a little bit?
Yeah, it's
Swappable parts. Who doesn't want those?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting also when you bring up like living hundreds of years. That's, I feel like, something that's not explored a lot in a lot of robots and fiction is the fact that this creature is pretty much immortal. And gender norms change, you know, so drastically between centuries. Like even just 100 years ago, what it meant to be masculine was entirely different.
Yeah.
So
Like
it's-
color coding, you know, pink and blue. Like, I think even as recently as World War II, I think it was, pink, which was basically light red, was a masculine coded color, while blue was associated with the Virgin Mary, so it was a more feminine color. And then somewhere around World War II, it just flipped 180 degrees. It's super interesting. Like
Color coding
colors.
based on your children's genitals. Whatever.
Well, you see, one of them is naturally pink. Go right down there. It's naturally blue. I need your animals for a reason, right?
If it's blue, you kind of got another problem. Like,
That is normal. You guys should see a doctor.
I don't know how to tell you this. But moving along, we are talking about physically bodied robotic characters, and it really does seem like something that's a lot more noticeable with female characters, just unnecessary vestigial gender markers bodily. You see that a lot more with female gendered robotic characters, don't you now?
Yeah, the default is male thing. I think I'm seeing that a lot now with that new Star Wars robot, BB droid. BB-8?
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It was adorable.
So cute.
And I don't think has ever been officially gendered.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Everybody, I've seen it so many times where people refer to it as he already.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
And
interesting.
Again, masculine until proven otherwise.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's true that the like trend in Star Wars droids is that they're pretty much, I think they're all male.
That's
Except
interesting.
for the waitress robot.
Well, you know,
I'm not kidding, that's just the only female-bodied robot that's coming to mind right now, the one that's a waitress in the diner.
well, no, there's that silver-looking C-3PO dealie that had a feminine coded, the one that was with the trade trade people, and they were like, they're the Jedi in the conference hall. Do you want to,
So we've got an
gas
assistant
them?
and we've got a waitress.
Yeah.
That's what we've got for women robots here.
But any helpful or main character droid
Yeah.
in Star Wars is
Automatically male, yeah.
See, it's funny. In my head, and this isn't necessarily better, but I always thought BB was female because A, it was cute, and B, BB was in the name, which is such a feminine.
It's such a cute little girl
Thanks,
name.
BB. Like, it's super cute.
Little baby BB. It's so strange. And generally, again, we're going back to that whole male until proven otherwise thing, which is so strange. Because with robotics, are we in a point where we should be considering the idea that with robotic characters that gender could be entirely arbitrary and that was something that they can function entirely without and is unnecessary?
Well, it's like, what kind of robots are we talking about here? Are we talking about, robots that, are there to help pilot a blaster ship or something where gender really isn't part of its duties? Or are we talking about, like, a C-3PO type dealing where if you're interacting with people
Yeah.
and, in our particular culture, dealing with individuals who don't necessarily identify as one or another thing or, various, a gender identity is unusual.
Yeah.
Not, impossible, but definitely, not common.
But if we were looking at a robotic-heavy society and culture, would that be a situation where we could deem gender identity to be completely arbitrary and unnecessary? No?
I definitely tend to think so. I mean, in my own fiction, which is full of robots, I tend to take the stance of gender is a completely arbitrary thing, but it's a game that these software people have inherited from us biological people. It's the culture that they're raised in, and it's just, it's an interesting game to play. And of course, there are probably ones who
It's a novelty to them, right?
who want to opt out of it and just be like, call me it. There are other ones who are like, yay, I totally want to be a dude, it's fun to be a guy. And others are like, I totally want to be a lady. Of course, there is also the distinction between things like R2. I'm not sure, I feel like it's almost debatable the level of sentience that has. It's like when you have characters that are still definitely robots, as in they're kind of slave beings created for a purpose, and there is much tools that we assign a gender because, your car, people say their car is a gender. I had a friend who said that her car was male and gay. And
What? Do you happen to know what kind of car it was?
it was a Jeep.
A Jeep?
Was
Interesting.
there car into other cars?
I don't know. I didn't probe that far. I was a boy at the time, so I just made jokes about not getting too close to his
You know what's so weird? I was trying to picture a gay Jeep, and I was like, all I know is it's a convertible. It didn't have a top. That's all I could think. He's like, that's a pretty gay Jeep.
Oh,
I got 2 words for you,
Oh,
Transformers.
baby, roll back my soft top.
My friend
Katie,
called,
this is a family channel.
Is it really?
my friend called her Mazda Miata convertible a gay boy car.
It's interesting, what are the markers, and it super varies by person, I'm sure, but even with the cars.
Actually, yeah, even with cars, you can take a look at them if you're stuck in traffic and look at sort of the visual outline of it and ask yourself, is this a car that was supposed to be marketed to men or marketed to women?
Yeah, well, the deal with Subarus, right? Subarus are the lesbian car. Yeah, for whatever reason, something about the compactness and the overall, usefulness and variability of the Subaru makes it the ideal, dog-toting lesbian mobile. So they and Subaru completely embraced it. You can see it in the way they advertise their cars. So yeah,
So
it's
the lesbians are the most sensible of car consumers.
I don't know, or at least with Subarus, it's super duper interesting to me, and that's the most overt example of car culture that I've seen.
It is completely fun though if you are stuck in traffic to look at all the backs of the cars if they're in front of you and see sort of the facial outline of the lights and the bumper and see which ones look like they're more masculine than feminine.
Yeah.
Are you a Subaru lesbian or a Ferrari lesbian?
Oh man.
Is there a Quizilla test on that?
Has there ever been studies about why ships and cars and stuff were coded female during the?
Well, I knew a guy in the Israeli army who was told On one of his first days, all of the guys who he was doing weapons training with were given their gun and told to give it a female name because they were told that they needed to be protective of it and feel like they needed to have an emotional bond to it.
Wow, so that is like,
And
that isn't
now
just like a thing from Firefly? Like you
No,
literally give your car...
the guy I knew actually named his gun Vera.
Are you for real?
I'm completely serious.
That's super interesting. Like, especially
They keep
considering like,
guns over there.
especially considering like guns, if you're a soldier, you're expected to take it apart and clean it for
You are. You're expected to have complete competency, like a lover. The parental control over it.
Oh God, that's
Like
really
a
Freudian.
Right?
That just sounds super Freudian.
Oh my God, how hot would it be to take apart and do maintenance on your robot lover partner?
Well,
That's pretty intimate.
Well, I mean, not
Is
getting
there
too-
someone from Smut Peddler here?
Oh
yeah, right.
Like,
Obviously.
well, there's interesting, there's continuing coverage of the, sex dolls and things like that. Like Roxy with 3 X's is one. And yeah, there's definitely like, increased questions about not necessarily the individuals who own a Roxy, but like the maintenance implied. Like, let's just say I've seen a picture of a Roxy who is not maintained properly. She's pretty grody looking. Like, it's so interesting. Like, there's like
sound effect.
there's like the idea of like, etiquette and like good, what's the word? Good ownership like practices of like this thing that you've coded with like an otherwise human, quality thing. It's super interesting.
But the idea of already giving it an ownership quality already raises a bunch of ethical questions about the
Yeah.
idea of having sex robots be a thing. Actually, Bonnie Burton had an article about it recently about how if that were to become a major market and a commodified market, that would raise all kinds of ethical questions about, well, for one thing, labor problems, ethical sex issues. There was just so many questions it would raise in an already kind of ambiguous theoretical market.
Yeah.
Fun stuff, right?
I always find that kind of thing super duper interesting.
So where do we define the line between like artificial intelligence and like an actual?
Exactly. If you are someone who can self-actualize, if you are any kind of being that can self-actualize and are capable of identifying and asserting your own personality, how much free will are you allowed as a sentient being?
Yeah, it's like there's never been any concrete answer, and even in a lot of properties like Star Wars, we were talking earlier about whether R2-D2 is sentient. And I remember it got pointed out to me like in the first film, how when Luke is like cleaning out R2-D2 after he rescues them both, and like someone was pointing out, and the way Luke kind of refers to R2 at first, C-3PO was like introducing it, and he's just like, yeah, hi, as if it didn't really matter. Like it's just kind of like whatever. You're just a thing I found. And then it is until later where like is R2 given a medal?
He should have been.
I don't remember. I know Chewie wasn't given a medal, and that's some banana
They actually
sandwiches,
established that he
but-
was in one of the sequel comics
Yeah.
that came out later that year.
That's not here, there, and there. But in any case, R2 is given like increased personhood by the people around him as the series goes on. I always thought that was interesting. That even in Star Wars, where droids are kind of everywhere, like they're kind of a part of everyday life, even that is, kind of left up to the individual non-droid to figure out how much personhood to bestow on.
It is very weird that that's something that they do not get to have the say in the agency over. And also, why aren't they allowed in bars?
Oh yeah, that's right. They were.
They're allowed to bring their guns into the bars, but they're not allowed to bring their robot friends.
Is it just because they can't patronize? Like they wouldn't? Is it sort of like not? That would be weird. That would be like no teetotalers in a bar.
Yeah, that would be like, well, I was almost about to say that would be like no bringing your kids to a bar.
Oh yeah, you know robots left because they're super mean. They goose people. They're just bad.
You know that little shocker thing that R2 has? It sneaks up behind people.
Oh, that is not the shocker.
Family friendly panel! Sorry!
If you're a robot, there's a separate but equal bar.
That's technophobic.
Yeah, B. Arthur though. B. Arthur would be. She'd be such. She'd have the really great robot bar.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry,
That'd
any
be a
Star Wars
cocktail
holiday
list.
special victims in here?
Always pay your tribute to B. Arthur. Yes.
Oh.
You gotta remember though, that's a universe that has robots designed for killing.
Yeah, that's true.
We're
Yeah.
supposed to be like, well, I don't know if you're really as opposed to you were designed to kill things.
But
Yeah,
that brings
that's
us into the ethical question of, well, bringing it back to you can bring guns into a bar, but you can't bring a droid who might be a killer droid into a bar versus a gun that will very definitely hurt you if it's handled by an untrustworthy person. That brings us into all kinds of weapons
You know what I
management.
just remembered?
Questions?
I got a book, from when the Femmes came out that had all this, show pictures of all the new things. And I remember there were
Visual
the droids.
dictionary.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
were the droids, the skinny bird-looking ones
Yeah.
that were just droids. But then there were those armadillo-looking fancy schmancy ones that rolled up. They were called droidicas. And I remember being 9, and there was girl robots. They were the super deadly ones. I just forgot
Well,
about
if it's
that.
Ika, then it's got kind of a feminine bent to the name, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was a super.
feminine A.
I just kind of took that as a course because that's how they gendered every cartoon thing I'd ever seen
Yeah.
up to that point.
Le droid fatale.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting.
But again, those droids were just ageless servants.
Yeah, they didn't even
Yeah.
say dumb, meaningless things like the regular
I
droids
think a
did.
lot of these droids in Star Wars, they really coded as a slave race to me the more I think
Yeah.
about it. Very few of them have agency. They're all subservient to humans. They're owned like property. I mean,
Were there
it's-
any robots voting in the Senate?
No, I don't think there are.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm
Star Wars
sad.
droids are all slaves.
This just got dark.
Okay, well, does anyone who want to
I always
the
thought
Star
that
Wars
the
droid?
bar was like a white movie bar.
I love this revisionist Star Wars history. They just picked a really crappy bar.
They picked the most redneck bar.
Yeah,
The most
and that's where they
isolated.
met Han Solo, right? Maybe that was
Oh my
Greedo's
God.
choice. Greedo's meet me in this bar, and Han's like, ugh.
It's a clean bar.
God, it's Tatooine. The whole place is full of rednecks. All those dust farmers.
Luke Speeder is actually the equivalent of a John Deere out there.
But it is
I'm gonna get in
interesting,
trouble for that.
I think like you were saying about how C-3PO was designed basically to interact with humans, and that was his sole function.
Yeah.
And so he, I think, represents a kind of robot that that should have choices of changing how he presents himself or how he identifies based on the situation that he thinks would be most comfortable for the human that he's interacting with.
C-3PO is an interesting example because even though he's identified as male, he's also identified as prissy. That's a word that's identified.
Yeah.
He's very
That's his main
coded as
characteristic.
he's prissy, which I also think is interesting. Clearly he's meant to be polite and prevent social faux pas between cultures. I just realized that, who knows?
C-3PO is a theater droid.
Yeah, that's
It has
exactly
a
right.
theater accent.
Yeah,
Theater.
yeah, there's
that
that-
droid's all pink on.
honestly, that would make a lot of sense for a protocol robot. Maybe
I
there are
want a
cultures.
protocol robot that wasn't prissy, honestly. We need someone
Or no,
watching it.
protocol
So-
robot that can go between various gender
Yeah.
identities. It's
Fluidity. That would
yeah,
be handy in that situation.
there are cultures where it's considered rude or inappropriate to interact with a different member of a different gender unsupervised. And there's going to be political situations where Senator Amidala has to talk to
One of the redneck senators from Tatooine.
or just whatever. It doesn't have to be redneck or just
Yeah.
it's just something where that's just not how things are done.
When you need a go-between.
Yeah, a
Sometimes,
go-between that can appropriately reflect gender norms, of the other culture. That makes total sense. To have a gender fluid protocol droid. It's more efficient.
Yeah, and so it almost goes against his prime directive, you could say, that, if he's trying to, create a situation where he's interacting in the most efficient way with humans, then has this sort of fixed notion of gender, or
You've got
that's given to him.
You've got to wonder if the gender thing is only really there for the uncanny valley factor to try and make them seem a little more comfortably human.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like how when a robot becomes your friend in a lot of these things, you give them a gender to, to indicate that switch from
Yeah.
weird
You are
factor to-
not an object, you are a person.
Yeah.
This is how I personalize you.
There are
Yeah.
also, there are also both stories from the same time that are kind of more assign genders. Like I cannot remember the exact title of this book, but there was one I read growing up as a kid in the 70s about a kid who went off and got, his family went off and got him a friend robot, who was a little boy robot who, you know, whose chassis was rebuilt every now and then, so he too would grow up and just be this boy's best friend. It's like, I mean, there was something explicitly with a gender set into it.
Huh. It was a 70 book?
Yeah. I think it was called something like My Brother the Robot or something. I really can't remember. It was something, I'm pretty sure it's something I picked up at a Scholastic book fair, so good luck finding anything.
Well, now I'm just thinking of like the child robot Dorian Gray, one that ages used to be younger.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
Again, welcome to my pen. Okay, so to flip the switch on that a little bit, when we've been mostly talking about fluid, identifying robots that we theoretically like to see more, but when we do see robotic and AI characters that are identified as female explicitly, what is something we would like to see a little less of?
Well, this is not entirely fair considering it's from the 30s, but the fact that, you know, Maria from Metropolis was like the whore of Babylon analog. Like the fact that she was like this temptress who was undoing all the good work by all the other protagonists.
She had
like,
such great eye makeup.
she had killer eye makeup. She also had good dance moves.
I know, evil Maria was just so much more interesting than good Maria.
I'm just kind of bummed that the like sleek like Art Deco robot Maria had all of like 5 seconds of screen time.
Yeah, well they had Brigitte Helm, who was the actress inside the robot costume.
Yeah,
so
and they like couldn't let her out, so they were just like giving her juice boxes.
You
so
can
she
find
wouldn't be
pictures
like-
of her like having air pumped in through little tubes and her just looking miserable in there.
That's like one of my favorite movies.
It's-
But yeah, seriously, it's
If
one
you
of those-
haven't seen it, it's definitely worth the like, what, 2.5 hours?
Yeah, but Robot Maria is one of my problematic faves.
Yeah, Robotic Maria is very interesting in the fact that she's the one who ends up getting even more attention and leeway than regular human Maria. And she's also so much sexier.
Yeah,
Which is
that was
how
like-
we know she's evil.
Who has not seen Metropolis? Okay, go to YouTube, look up Maria's dance. It's like the most German cinema you'll ever see, because it's literally like that she's in this like Salome like dress, like dancing around, and superimposed just like eyes, and all these weird dudes go like, yeah, and it's just like it's wonderful.
Really
cinema.
uncomfortable.
Wonderful,
So well done.
yeah, wonderful cinema, but yeah, very German 1930s cinema.
And you really got to remember that the screenwriter of the movie later was broken up with by Fritz Lang because she was just too much of a Nazi.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, was
Yeah.
this the, okay, what's her name?
Yeah.
The Nazi female wrestler.
No, not her.
Oh, a different one.
Not Lady Reifenstahl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact, Starship Troopers cinematic look was inspired by Nazi like films.
Yep.
Yeah, that's like a real thing. Like they super flipped the script, but that was a fun thing. Lenny's films were.
One of the only times I've ever actually seen that criticized, I think, was in a back issue of Vogue when they were talking about the costumes of sci-fi, and they're like, I would have liked Starship Troopers more if it wasn't going on that Nazi chic.
That's
so
the whole
much."
point.
Yeah. I know.
I think the one thing I'd like to see a lot less of in robot genders in media is I'm really getting tired of the life hologram naked lady who is there to help you.
Oh, like Cortana.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, I have no problems with some software people wanting to present as a hot babe. I would totally be one of those people, but it's like, God, put some clothes on, you people.
Or at
Don't
least,
go
like-
waving it all around all the time.
Or subvert it, just like get, you know, there's probably like some hot, like semi-naked or like sheerly clothed dude AI,
Yeah.
like who's just
Actually,
I
the
know,
extended
what-
version of THX 1138, you get to see some of that.
really.
Only the
What would
extended
have on
updated
the
version.
card?
Wow, thanks
Yeah.
George Lucas.
I know, right? Who'd have thought?
I want to see sexy pals avatar, you know?
Yes. Yes.
It's just like,
You know there's someone out there who's turned on by that voice.
Lee, what about you?
The bedroom voice.
Oh man, I was trying to think of the different female robots that have that actually have bodies, and I kept thinking about the Jetsons robot. Is that Rosie?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how I feel like that she was the only example that I can think of a female presenting robot that isn't like that sexy life.
Yeah, you know, that's a good example, because that's like a
That was
really
for the inspiration
subtly,
for this panel, actually, yeah.
that was pretty subtly, you know, coded female and that
I'm not gonna, she was a house robot. And, there's another word lying under there that begins with N that I'm
Let's
not
not
gonna
go
say.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, that coding is definitely within the 50s-ness of the Jetsons.
But even to this day, when we see female robotic characters, we do see an unnecessary amount of gender coding that we really do not see as much with male-identified characters.
I think a lot of it is just, this is the way we code gender in this culture. I mean, how many human characters are coded excessively male versus female characters that are like, their code, oh my god, super femme.
Yeah.
Especially if you're reading superhero comics.
It's like one of those things where if the robotic thing makes them slightly less sexy and less feminine, so you have to up the ante to over...
Yeah. Have you ever seen that thing where someone designed Pac-Woman?
Yes.
There's a really great example. You know, you're all familiar with Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man, right? Someone was like, well, what if the blank, pie wedge shaped thing was Pac-Woman, and then there was Mr. Pac-Woman, where it just had a bow tie and a top hat. Like, that's a super great, super accessible example of that sort of thing.
Good look for him, I think.
He looks so
Good way to go.
dapper. Yeah, can you imagine Pac-Woman chasing around this dapper little so-and-so, around the cut
She's gonna get her.
He's wanting to be dragged off to the altar.
Yeah, it's super cute, and that's a super great example of that kind of, the least accessorized thing is always coded male.
Yeah, again,
Exceptions.
male until proven female, until excessively proven visually female.
Male until proven Wahula Zuma.
Exactly. All right, so do we want to open up the floor to questions now, Benny? Feel free to come up to the mic so that we keep an eye on you.
Yeah, feel free to head up.
So we know who's Hi there, young man.
Hi. So you don't know me at all, Grace. It's
I
fine.
don't.
So, question. If you have a race of robots or a society of robots or whatever in a medium that has voice acting, this assumes it's not a book, how important do you guys think it is if you are trying to not just arbitrarily gender them? How important do you think it is to disguise the gender of the voice actor that is reading their moments?
Well, I do think there are genuinely voice actors out there who can do an ambiguous voice and who do some great characterization for that. I'm thinking specifically because in preparation for this panel, I sat and watched through all of the Transformers cartoons. It was an experience, and I can, of the entire franchise, think of exactly one character that is considered non-gendered, and the character is voiced by a female voice actress. But in kind of a childlike, squeaky voice, so it sounds robotic.
That actually brings up a really good point, because the most androgynous kind of person the general public would think of are children.
Yeah.
And there's a good example that Bart Simpson has always been voiced by a woman.
Yeah.
And you get that a lot with cartoon characters is, because children are often seen as potentials in terms of gender, and that's why, we are often, I don't know, it's super interesting that the closest we can think of, as a general public, thinking of non-gendered people often tend to be kids.
It's also
it shouldn't be that way.
It's kind of infantilizing for people who can
It's
identify themselves as
absolutely-
non-gendered also.
Yeah, it's absolutely infantilizing. I'm just saying that's
Yeah.
what most the general public
Yeah.
would see.
I mean, what does a non-gendered human sound like? We want a model of that.
Yeah.
When they look for voice actors, they're looking for somebody at an alpha level.
Yeah, someone who's maybe super deep for a woman, kind of higher for me, somewhere in between. And even then, it's often kind of a butchy, line delivery. It's often not very C-3PO-esque.
I think we have in recent years seen some really interesting stuff with male voice actors voicing female characters and just talking normally to see what the reaction
That's true.
will be.
Who's that one girl from Gravity Falls?
Kristen Shaw?
No. Mabel's friend, who's voiced
Brenda,
by.
yeah.
That was
Girlfriend.
Yeah, I thought that was actually super interesting.
I actually really like what they've been doing with Bob's Burgers, where they
Yeah.
have young female characters just voiced by guys and just talking like guys.
And what's funny
see
is-
what happens with that.
What's funny is
and how that
even
adds or detracts from the characterization.
what's funny is even if it's originally played for laughs, if you identify with that character and if they just kind of stick with it, long enough, I call it Dr. Girlfriend syndrome, because that's a great
that's what I was
example of
gonna say.
where there's absolutely no effort made to change the pitch of the voice, but they.
But it becomes part of the character.
Yeah,
part of the appeal.
Yeah, that's part of the appeal, and like in my mind, like that is absolutely a woman's voice. Like that is her as is. Like, and I think it's one of those things where it's not really. It's absolutely on the part of the person watching or listening or whatever to make that shift in their head and like get a little bit of empathy for that character, and then that kind of happens on its own. It's not the responsibility of the character.
Actually, I kind of want to say that I feel like a good voice for a non-gendered, if we were casting a show full of non-gendered robots, I'd want to get a whole bunch of trans people for the voice.
Yes.
Because I mean, you know, there's some male qualities and some female qualities in differing amounts depending on which direction they're going. Also, you're like, hey, you would get a huge instant audience of, oh my God, all these voice actors are trans. Well,
Oh my God.
hello, all the trans.
Can you imagine a cartoon of nothing but robots and Jamie Clayton was one of them from Sense8?
Holy crap.
Oh boy. Okay. Maybe we should go on to another
We've
question.
got another question here?
Sure. I was wondering if you know of any books or series that talk about class hierarchies within robots? Because you think a robot could change their components, their processing power, and also their voice and gender. And I was wondering if that's ever been explored.
Charlie Strauss's Saturn's Children and the sequel Neptune's something I can't remember even though I read it. That's got a post-human society where humans are all basically dead. And there's all these different castes of robots who were created for various things. Some of them are very much servant robots, some of them are companion robots, and they're all wired to be subservient to people they're wired to be subservient to humans, which means that the humanoid companion robots, because of this wiring, everyone defers to them instinctually.
I would say that the modern Battlestar Galactica is a great example of that. You have the sort of newer generation of Cylons that treat the older generation sort of as pets or slaves.
What was that book called by Charles
Saturn's Children, and the second one I think is Neptune's Brood. That's it.
Is Saturn's Children the book with the hot purple haired lady?
Yes,
It's a terrible book cover, but I
No,
also
it's
told an
really
excellent
terrible
book.
We could make an
cover.
entire separate panel about that.
That book cover is profoundly ironic because that whole book is kind of his tribute to what he described as blood clot Heinlein. Specifically, you know, the period where Heinlein, who had blood clot in his brain and was kind of writing weird stuff, and specifically a tribute to Friday.
Wow, that
And the
explains a lot
covers
about
of Friday are always
Yeah.
inappropriately
Yeah.
sexual. So of course, you have this embarrassingly over-sexualized robot that you cannot read that book in physical copy on the bus.
All right, should we
Without being made a stranger in a strange land.
Good book though.
All right, next question.
I just want to make a comment about ancillary justice,
Mhm.
which is just a really great series. I wish there were a lot more books in it. But one of the things someone said was, you know, well, robots are basically immortal, and gender norms change over time, and they actually do touch on that because one of the characters, one of the robotic AI, is taken out for a while, and when they come back as an AI, they never really understood gender in the first place, and it's kind of a running, not really gag, but theme where the AI character can't tell genders.
Yeah.
It is always looking at people and trying to say, you know, oh gosh, what's this society like, and how do I do that? Because these guys, I know, get offended when you call him her. You know, and so they do touch on it.
Yeah, that was a really
They've got a lot of really great things.
That was a really funny running gag in Ancillary Justice when the protagonist AI, she just like has this ongoing like, oh geez, how long can I keep this conversation going without referring to a gendered pronoun or object?
Yeah.
It's like, and she's like, my odds are 50-50, I don't really care.
Yeah, after a point, she's just like, whatever.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way I'm keeping all this crap straight.
Next question, come on up.
I was just saying, as far as a voiceless body goes, I know when there are times where like playing up different things can get you different things. There's a synthetic intelligence. it seems like if they didn't have something to go along with it, if they were talking to somebody that they thought would be more amenable to male voice or female voice or androgynous voice, they might, it seems like you'd see a lot more flexibility in that, but I've never actually seen it in the storyline.
That's something we can hope for in the future, definitely, to get to see more flexibility.
I like that idea. Do you mind if I steal that and prove my idea?
Come on up.
When we were talking about what we'd like to see change, when we're looking at universes with a lot of robots or mechanized entities, what drives me bonkers is all the coded female robots have the same body shape, same height, same size, and it's not dictated by their job. But the male ones, if they're a soldier,
Again,
they're shaped
Transformers,
somehow.
anyone?
You know,
Every woman is the same.
I'm sorry, when I look at like women that serve in the military, like flesh and blood people,
Yeah.
the ones who can pass their PT test are not skinny little things that fit in their uniforms, and we have to have our uniforms custom cut for us
Yeah.
because we fit our job.
Yeah.
As opposed to the ones that fit in the little 1940s uniforms, can't do a single push-up or a pull-up, and can't run 2 miles.
Yeah.
You do definitely see in character design a very set idea of what female is supposed to be, as opposed to the variety that we get to see with male.
There's the robot soldier equivalent of female heavy from Team Fortress 2. Hell yeah, I will see that.
Can we draw that after this?
Yes, I think we're going to have to draw a party of femme soldier
I
robots.
don't remember which video game this was. You might have to help me out. There's a character who was like a magical golem type creature named Shale. Does anyone know what Shale is? It is a Dragon Age? Okay, yeah, it's like the super bulky, like rock, like construct
Yeah.
that is she identifies as female, if I'm not mistaken. But the voice and the body is like, you know, what most
Very
players
suited
would.
male, yes.
Yeah, and even like the tone of delivery, like it's super interesting that literally we call her female because she says she's female, and that was a super interesting
Dragon Age
character.
is really good at that.
Oh, yeah.
Dragon Age is super queer for a AAA.
Yeah, Dragon Age is hella cool.
We've only got a few minutes left, so we can probably just barely fit these last 2 questions in. Kitty Pryde, come on up.
So I'm actually a big fan of both Western and Eastern versions of androids, cyborgs, et cetera, et cetera. And I've always found the differences between how robots are portrayed in Japanese stuff very interesting. Like in Western, you see male robots, and they're big, and they're toting guns, and they're going to kill y'all, and they're going to destroy us all. And in Japanese culture, you see big titties and I was wondering about your thoughts on that.
Japan is also the country that gave us Astro Boy. I mean, that's like a prototypical example of I made a robot and raised it as my own child.
But because it didn't grow up, I sold it to a circus.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Astro Boy is
Jessica is dark.
Well, I think if we're talking about Japanese cartoons and comics versus Western comics and cartoons, we're definitely looking at a big difference in the variable of being used to being able to have a wider range of subject matter and a much wider range of what you're allowed to do and what the audience expects from you with Eastern culture versus Western culture, for one thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, storytelling backgrounds to refer to in like Eastern culture versus Western culture. Like I think what's interesting is a lot of robot stories in Western culture refer to the Pygmalion and Galatea myth. And I feel like in Japan, you don't necessarily have that precedent, so you have an interesting other way of depicting female constructed individuals.
And I'm afraid we're going to have to get to our last question now.
I just wanted to ask about how you felt about Doctor Who's treatment of things like cyborgs and Daleks, and the fact that the first Dalek that really becomes a person is Kara.
It's a little problematic, I think.
And then also the TARDIS being
cast
as female.
We have beings that are shown to be able to be self-aware and self-identify, but are not really given any agency, and that always just Yeah.
It's kind of hit or miss as
Yeah.
far as I can tell. And I know it's because Doctor Who is.
Isn't aren't TARDISes like built to love their pilots or something crazy?
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, that's not creepy at all. Built to be slaves, built to be subservient to the bios.
Yeah, it's some hit or
Yeah.
miss legacy there.
Yeah.
So go look into it, form an opinion on it, tell the world about your opinion.
Mhm.
And thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah,